The market on close. I'm Marley Kayden here in Chicago alongside Sam Vadas at the New York Stock Exchange. We'll close our show how we do every day with some final thoughts on the session. Of course, we did not get our usual unemployment numbers today, and we will not get our non-farm payrolls report tomorrow with the government closure still in effect. What we did get was some data that continues to show a softening labor market. The Chicago Fed released data that says that the unemployment rate remained unchanged in September, standing at about 4.34%. In other data, a report from Challenger Gray and Christmas said that hiring plans have receded sharply, hitting the lowest level we've seen since 2009. Important to note, we were in the midst of a financial crisis at that point. New hirings, according to their data, totaled just under 205,000 so far in 2025. That's 58% off from the same period a year ago. And Intel making headlines again today, this time for a potential relationship with AMD. The semiconductor giant is reportedly in early talks with AMD about having the company's longtime rival sign up as a foundry business customer. If AMD were to start manufacturing chips with Intel, it would be a significant win for Intel's foundry business, which is currently seeking some big customers. Their fairly new foundry division has really struggled to gain attraction despite its intention to be a new growth path for the company. However, in the past few weeks, Intel has added several new investors, including the U.S. government, NVIDIA, SoftBank, which were all seen as votes of confidence in the company's turnaround plan under CEO Lip-Bu Tan. A note, though, that's important, NVIDIA did not commit to using Intel's foundry business, and they are also reportedly potentially in talks with Apple as well. Sam, those were some things that caught my eye. What caught yours during today's session?
Yeah, well, obviously we got those Tesla numbers, but I thought what was really interesting, my takeaway was the analyst reaction to the performance over in China, which is such a huge and important market for this company. I mean, we don't get China numbers from Tesla itself. We actually have to wait for that from the Chinese side. But Dan Ives out with a note today over at Wedbush, really pointing out that he's still confident on China for Tesla despite the local competition. He's also saying that he's encouraged by the recently updated Model Y and the rise of registrations, particularly in that market. We did also get numbers out of BYD, and that is important because it's really seen as a primary competitor to Tesla. It saw its first monthly sales decline this year and its first quarterly drop since 2020, which takes you back to the onset of COVID, remember? And that was amid really an intense price war and fierce local competition during that period. Now, sticking with the Chinese theme, Alibaba quietly sort of hitting a 52-week high today after a decent rally over in Hong Kong. The stock getting even more bullish attention from JP Morgan now, upping its price target to a street high of 240 Hong Kong dollars, citing improved cloud revenue and better synergy between AI and its core e-commerce business. Now, Baba's AMAP, which some do compare to Google Maps, reaching record daily active users on the first day of a big national holiday, which is a peak travel period over in China. So that also might be helping put the wind in the sails of Alibaba, which has been on quite a remarkable run of late. But heading into tomorrow, Marley, what will you be looking out for?
We have more Fed speak tomorrow, and this continues to be of potential importance in the absence of data during the shutdown. Dallas President Lori Logan spoke today, saying that she said she believes the Fed should be, quote, very cautious about further interest rate cuts, noting that inflation is running above target and trending higher. She seemed less concerned about employment, that component of the dual mandate, during the speech today. She also emphasized the importance of the Fed's dependence and data-driven approach, saying that the Fed remains focused on, quote, data and facts to help ensure stable conditions over time, which I thought was very telling. In the absence of this data, we're now relying on some independent reports. We also have other Fed speakers tomorrow. We'll hear from Lori Logan again, as well as New York Fed President John Williams and the Vice Chair of the Fed, Philip Jefferson. And these are three big voices as they're all voting members of the FOMC, Sam. How about you?
Some of those data points, which will be heavily scrutinized. We get ISM services out tomorrow, and that manufacturing data out a few days ago did stay in contraction, new orders continuing to drag, but manufacturing only makes up for about 30% of the economy. So there's so much more weighting on the services data, which really carries a lot more weight in terms of what we're working with. From the previous month, we did get a solid number of 52. That was the best since February. So let's see if we can continue to see that trend. Keeping an eye eye on prices paid. That was still high last month, but it is making progress. We want to know if that continues. New orders are a key metric as well that we look at, and keep a look out for the employment gauge as well, particularly in light of some of those concerns around the job market and a lack of jobs data this week. So obviously this is going to be one critical data point that we will be hopefully getting. We'll be staring at our screens, I think, on the edge of our seats when we Marley tomorrow. But I mean, you know, this is just in lieu of everything else that we haven't been getting. And, you know, this should give us a good idea of how things are holding up, particularly on the consumption side of the equation, which has looked okay. It has looked resilient. And I think, you know, this is obviously going to be key to that whole growth story, which obviously the Fed is looking at very closely too.
Yeah, the markets have never been so interested in that manufacturing data in the absence of all of the rest. But that's going to do it for us on Market on Close.